So yes, I've been following the ins and outs of this. Apparently, Robinhood, they stopped allowing you to purchase those stocks, and come to find out they raised $1 billion from hedge funds. Hedge funds basically promised them, hey, keep blocking the purchasing of those stocks and we're going to make you $1 billion richer, basically. So they wanted to ease the restrictions because they saw how they were getting a bunch of 1-star reviews. And that's the other part to this. Google deleted like 100,000 1-star reviews. So that shows, it literally shows there's an elitist cabal going on.
Yeah, so there's two huge problems with that, and I think you go out to point at least one of these was that I'm pretty sure that it's pretty normal that companies will delete like massive influxes of negative reviews. That type of thing is like pretty normal. And then the second thing is that Robinhood got $1 billion cash infusion so that they could keep those trades going. It was for the exact opposite reason.
That's quite the claim. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not what happened, right? So what I read was that there were these two hedge funds, Ribbit and Sequoia, that essentially bailed out Robinhood, but it wasn't because these two hedge funds. It's not like they were shorting GME and AMC.
Yeah, and real quick,
they did it in exchange for equity in the company.
So I've been following the ins and outs of that. We had a great Krystal, Kyle, and friends that we just did today. Spoke to Justin Jackson. He's LA Chargers running back.
Somehow they had connections to the SEC. Somehow they had connections to Google. Somehow they had connections to Robinhood. Just off these few hedge funds, right? So they all rush in to protect each other. At the end of the day, that's what it's always going to be.
Yep,
that's right.
Allyship, right
and
there.
the details of what they did with Robinhood, out of this world, because apparently they were feeling the pressure from everybody and they were like, we got to ease the restrictions and let people buy GameStop and let people buy AMC. And then they got a phone call, and the phone call was the hedge funds, and the hedge funds said, we're going to give you $1 billion. And so they kept the restrictions on and took the $1 billion. It literally is an elitist cabal, and if anything, I feel silly and naive for underselling just how much of an elitist cabal it is. Yeah,
exactly right.
For sure.
I don't know if that was the case. If they're buying parts of Robinhood for equity, that might be the case.
That's what I read.
Okay, sure, that might be the case. But the reason why Robinhood is trying to raise money here is so that they could continue those trades. The problem is that Robinhood doesn't have the cash necessary to put up as collateral for all of the new buys that people are coming through with.
And I did see one of the things that you said, like there was one of Kyle's tweets or something. It said something like, they're getting $1 billion to stop trading. And I'm just reading that thinking, I fix MacBooks and I don't cover politics. This is just me just talking about shit that I see, and even I know that that's not true. And that, like, I could see how stuff like that being propagated would be incredibly aggravating. And
one of the things that frustrates me the most, if I pull back and I take a broader look at things, one of the things that frustrates me is when there's so much anger. I think anger can be really good because you can direct anger and you can get things done with it. But when anger is pointing to like the wrong places, it's like so wasted, and then no problem actually gets accurately identified or accurately fixed. Yeah.
But I also hear what you're saying, which is I think a part of your frustration is that the initial narrative is the one that sticks. Yeah. And any new information that comes out is completely and utterly ignored in favor of the initial information.
It's like doing a retraction. It never sells as hard as the initial claim. Yeah.
And I think a part of this is that people hear what it is that they want to hear, or they see the world in the way that they want to see the world. And I think this goes back to your original frustration when you were discussing Ted Cruz and AOC, which is that people are increasingly living in their own realities nowadays. And I think that people have reasons to see the world through a through a prism of how they believe it is. And anytime the world is outside of the way that they believe it is, that it causes them a sense of stress or anxiety. So they look for information or affirmation that the world actually is the way they see it, whether they think it is more in a left-wing section or a right-wing way, or whether they see it in a more populist way or a more neoliberalish way. People I think are looking for affirmation that the world is the way it is. And I think this is a lot of people think that when it comes to, at the very least, finance or high levels of government, they feel screwed over. They see a lot of corruption, and then something like this happens. And I could explain the way the trading system works and say, listen, here's where I think there's blame. Here's the person who lied. Here's the person that I think you should be angry at, and here's why you should be angry at it, but they actually want to be angry at him for a different reason.
Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily right, but like it's a little bit rough to be like, you have a liquidity problem when this is like an unprecedented amount of collateral needed. Like the amount of collateral being asked for these securities in combination with the immensely massive number of people coming under trade is like literally anybody could have a liquidity problem. And Robinhood weren't the only people that shut down as well, right? There were like 5 or 6 or 7 other platforms that stopped trades, and then there were like 4 or 5 more that limited the amount of trades on these securities. So
I heard that there were a lot of other platforms that did it, but for instance, I use Ameritrade, and they said that they were limiting trades, but when I actually tried one, just for the hell of it, it wasn't limiting me. So the reason that there was a lot more aggravation, I think, with Robinhood than other brokers that was supposedly doing the exact same thing is they put up a notice that said they're doing the same thing, but it wasn't like that in reality. It was still letting you buy. Like just for the hell of it, I remember trying buying and then immediately selling BlackBerry just to see what would happen. And like there was not a limit the way that they said there would be limited, but then it wasn't actually limited.
It's called the U.S. flag, you stupid fuck. This is the only flag that the United States federally has and recognizes. Why the fuck are you acting like
America shot down a plane over Tehran? It's a geography problem. If you look at where Tehran is in Iran, like this is a totally different situation. Like we would have to be in Iranian airspace shooting down planes.